And we're back with another episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. We truly appreciate everyone out there that listens to all of our great shows. And if you can, please give them all a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, if you can share, subscribe, on YouTube. Subscribe today to get the latest notifications where we go live on the air with the latest Pop Culture Cosmos, PC Multiverse, the State of Pro Wrestling, which is also coming up next week as well. Actually, probably I think I'll do one later this week. How about that? We'll go ahead and I'll reach out to John Orlando for the PVD cast because with the arrival of CM Punk in the WWE, that's some big news. So we'll go ahead and talk about that on the State of Pro Wrestling here later this week. Plus, also as well, go ahead and check out what we're doing on Facebook. If you like and follow us there, you get the latest notifications on the latest news and trends in pop culture, plus us as well at the Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook. And don't forget our website. It's all nice and neat there, popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. You have some great articles from the past, and also every week we update it with the latest shows where you can get it all in one nice, tidy little article, whether it's written, whether it's the YouTube, or whether it is a sample of the entire hour of the Pop Culture Cosmos show, and also Inside Sports Fantasy Football. You will find it right there at popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. And don't forget, happy shopping out there this weekend on Black Friday. I hope you did. And Thanksgiving, I hope was safe for you. And I'm hoping that you will catch all the trends of pop culture at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. And speaking of Black Friday shopping, speaking of Cyber Monday shopping, speaking of Thanksgiving shopping, you need to do your shopping. You need to finish off your Thanksgiving weekend shopping, your Cyber Monday, if you're hearing this shopping, at happyhoardercollectibles.com, because yes, there is still more savings that you can do today on some great pop culture items. Just make sure you go ahead and get it all at Happy Hoarder Collectibles. And when you check out, type in the discount code Happy Holidays 23 for a 10% discount off your order today. It is a good man indeed. It is Josh the Great, Josh Peterson. Josh, great to have you here, my friend, my fellow National University alumni. I know we kind of just always forget about them, but you know what? National University is always near and dear to our heart. Most of the time.
Absolutely. Yeah, most of the time. Absolutely. I do have some fond memories of the old Nat U, but yeah, I'd actually not really I don't really look back on it much anymore.
I
But
only look back
sorry.
on it. I only look back on it when I wear this shirt, which says the class of 2017 on the back and has a listing of all the people therein. And then of course I still see it on my school tuition bill. Yeah, that's
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, ever since the student loans kicked back in, I do remember how hard it was to get articles published in the school newspaper
yes,
because yeah, because they're always like, "Did you fact check this?" Well, yes, I did. But also, how do you fact check something like this?
exactly.
I
But
can't I can't fact.
most of our articles were okay when we did stuff outside, and we did some articles, but a lot of our articles were more stories and opinions. So
Right, right. Yeah. So that's what I meant. Like, how do you fact check an opinion on a movie? Like, how do you back up what I'm saying? you know?
exactly, because I know you did a lot of pop culture articles around that time. That's how you and I got to know each other. And you hopped on the Game Source
Mhm.
podcast on that
Yeah,
time, and then
right.
eventually into the Pop Culture Cosmos was your affinity for, I think, Spider-Man as primarily. You did some nice Spider-Man articles during that time, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I did, and the rest, as they say, is legend.
It is legend indeed at the Pop Culture Cosmos. But please go ahead and check out happyhoardercollectibles.com where you can get some Marvel related items, but also as well, if you are into anime, whether it's Dragon Ball, Mobile Suit Gundam, Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and more. Go ahead and check it out today. A lot of Funko Pops, a lot of other action figures, just a whole bunch of great stuff that you can find right there for you at happyhoardercollectibles.com. But we're going to have a great show today. We have got a lot to discuss when it comes to the future of movie making, because I think the future of movie making is being dictated a lot by what is being written and ultimately paid for by the audience out there this year at the box office. COVID is no longer a thing as far as the box office is concerned. I guess maybe I should change that statement a little bit, because maybe some people still fear going to the theater as far as that type is concerned. Since COVID, maybe some people have feared coming back. I think more the habits that were created. And I remember around the time of COVID, when we were all cordoned inside, you had made some statements about the changing dynamic of the streaming and Hollywood industry that was going to shape the way we view things going forward. And I thought it was very poignant then, and it's still gotten more poignant since then. I've always remembered that conversation. And I want you to think about that, Josh, because when you look at what happened this past weekend at the box office, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes from the Hunger Games prequel, that won the box office, but it's only going to do about $50 million throughout the entire weekend. It is going to generate about another about get close to $100 million domestically domestically, $100 million domestically, about $150 million worldwide is going to be sitting at. The thing is, it's not a really truly expensive film. It's only cost right around $100 million to make. So there's a real possibility it could break even or see a slight profit before it leaves. But it's after that, my friend, which really the numbers you start to see some issues with Napoleon, which was another one like Killers of the Flower Moon, another Apple huge $200 million plus investment, where it's going to make about $40 million this weekend or thereabouts at the domestically, and probably reach maybe in the 70s worldwide. And then maybe by the time it's done, it's probably going to maybe hit about 150, maybe $200 million worldwide. As far as that's concerned, that's not close to breaking even for that movie. Wish, another $200 million movie. That is absolutely getting killed at the box office. It's going to finish third here domestically and third worldwide this weekend at the box office. Trolls Band Together, that was also not another cheap movie to make. And then you've got The Marvels in sixth. That's been a huge bomb for Disney. The thing I'm getting at, my friend, is that these movies are all come with the price tag that's really super high. All were dependent on the way the traditional way that the movie makes money via the box office. Now, a lot of these movies are going to have to lean on what they do in the streaming market, because the Blu-ray and DVD market is not dead, but it's not exactly full of life either. I think we need to reevaluate and have a long conversation and reevaluate the way we look at making and watching films and seeing what is a success and not a success in movie making today.
Yeah, that's this is a tricky topic to tackle, because I think there's a lot of factors.
Go back to National University and write thesis papers on this again.
I know. This would have been a gold.
No, I don't actually want to do that, because that just means more tuition money. That's okay.
Yeah, more student loans to pay off. No,
or we'll have Dr. Amster get after us again.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So the Hunger Games movie is weird, because I don't. Like I said last week, it feels like it was forced out, like they were just trying to milk a franchise for a little bit of money. So
that's the one that could break even when all is said and done, because it was made for a lower ticket price than the other movies behind it.
It was, but like I said, it also feels like it was made for the sole purpose of getting a quick buck off of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You look at something like Napoleon. Napoleon's weird because they announced that the director's cut's going to be coming out on Apple Plus or Apple TV, whatever that their streaming service is called. So why am I going to spend 10-15 bucks to go to the movies to watch something when I could watch what's clearly the better version coming out in a streaming platform in like what 3 weeks?
Seemingly, the Killers of the Flower Moon, same thing. The Apple is invested $400+ million on those two films, and combined, those two films will not come even close to getting to that $400 million number. So,
Yeah.
how do you view success for those films? Let's say those films combined get 7 or 8 Oscar nominations or more, and they win 3 or 4 Oscars. Do you view that still as a success? The accountants would tell you no. Are you getting a whole bunch of people that are coming in to subscribe to Apple TV Plus? It better be a lot for the $400 million you invested in those two films, right, Josh?
Yeah, you won't see a return. I mean, you won't see the return on it that that you spent. So yeah, that is definitely an interesting question. Artistically, if it wins a bunch of Oscars, Academy Awards, or whatever, it yeah, it is a success artistically, but financially, it's not really a success, right? Because you're not seeing you're getting acclaim for the work that was done, but you're not getting a financial return on it. So that's definitely it is an issue because even if you had a bunch of people subscribe to Apple Plus, you're not going to that, that those subscription fees are probably not going to reach the cost of the movie. And on top of that, anyone with an iPhone or anyone that is currently subscribing to Verizon or what's the other one, AT&T, right? Like you
Or
get free
T-Mobile
months.
or any of those?
Mobile, yeah, you get free months of Apple TV. So what kind of how do you measure? How do you measure the money that you're seeing from it? You can't. It's chaos. It is all over the place. There is no true way of measuring the return on something like that. And I think the same stands for all these streaming platforms.
So, okay, if that's the case, and you're sitting down in these boardrooms next year, let's say early next year, and you've evaluated the year 2023, the box office in total, how do you gauge a film then? You're going to have to set up budgets for movies going forward for these films. They're not getting any cheaper to make, my friend. So, what would you be doing as far as if you're in the accountant, you're the guy that's the numbers guy, you're telling the people in charge, this is what you should look forward to as far as budgeting films going forward in the future. You cannot consistently tell me that budgeting these films for 250 million dollars, $300 million, and we haven't even touched on the Disney films yet. That's another conversation entirely. But you cannot consistently tell me Apple, you say, oh yeah, Apple's got a ton of money. They can just sell some more iPhones and Apple Watches and iPods, and as far as that all that's concerned, yeah, blah blah blah. They've got a ton of money. Well, these companies don't want to continually throw away money time in, time out. So I don't know how many more times you're going to get these spectacular event movies like Napoleon and Killers of the Flower Moon, and people to go ahead and invest in these directors who keep preaching this style of Hollywood that they were loved so much, if they cannot back it up with actual money making at the box office. I mean, Christopher Nolan is the only one out of the major directors out there, unless I'm wrong. I mean, Spielberg. Spielberg has
Guillermo
not
del
been.
Toro's been pretty vocal about it too.
Yeah, but he's not. He is not. He's not had winners financially at the box office. He's a case in point. He's a him. His greatest success in the past few years was a Netflix movie,
Well,
was it
it's
not?
Shape of Water. Shape of Water won a bunch of awards, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if that was a high
That
box
was not
office
a that
return.
did
But
not
yeah,
kill it at the box office.
yeah.
What was his greatest movie in the past few years is a Netflix movie, Pinocchio.
Right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I guess yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah. So I'm asking you, my friend, when you've got Guillermo del Toro, who's been very vocal, when you've got, when you've got Martin Scorsese, who's been absolutely vocal, and you've got also as well Ridley Scott, who's been also vocal about this, and they're vocal about the old way of doing things and the stylistically how Hollywood has to be this way and fans need to watch movies in a certain way. They're not watching them in the certain way that they're asking for, yet they still want $200 million from whoever they can get it from, whether it's Netflix or Apple, in order to go ahead and make their movies. Something has got to give, my friend. It's either the old way of doing things that we all follow and adhere to, or something else has to logistically change.
Yeah. I look at it, it's
Christopher Nolan is the only one who could preach all this and has the box office cachet to back it up. But even
yeah,
he has Tenet. Now, Tenet was troubled because it came out at the absolutely wrong time because he forced it out there. So that's maybe a different argument altogether.
well,
But
yeah, he was trying to
with
pioneer that return to the movie
yeah,
theaters.
with Oppenheimer, he is struck it rich. So basically, he still has the cachet going forward. But Martin Scorsese has The Irishman, which was a $200 million Netflix movie, and now this movie, A Killers of the Flower Moon, at $200 million. Then you also have Ridley Scott, who we both absolutely love his style of filmmaking. He put this out $200 million Napoleon. I'm just asking, my friend, these guys are so set in their ways. I'm not going to be able to change them. You and I can't convince them. Hollywood is the only ones can convince them, because they will stop funding their movies as long as they continue to go ahead and have underperforming movies like this done so bad or performing so bad financially.
Yeah, but we also don't know what's going on behind the scenes, if the studio's kind of dictating what they can and can't do. But you're looking at, like, look at, we are beyond the point of blaming COVID for things, right? Like the Taylor Swift tour has beyond.
There's still people who may not actually go to theaters, like Melinda's a case in point. She's not returned to the theaters as of yet, or found a project good enough to return to the theaters as of yet. There's probably others out there, but it's not the overwhelming majority. If the
No,
overwhelming majority of people out there have either returned for a film or could return, under the right circumstance or right movie project.
right, but it's not the, like, the mega factor that it was before. It's not, yeah, it has a little bit of effect, but it's not dictating a majority of people right now.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
you can't, I mean, yeah, and like I said, like, look at people going to see Taylor Swift and all these all these events, yep, that people are going to. They've returned in masses to, like, live in-person events. So you're looking at that, but also, I know I've commented on this before, like with studios going to these streaming platforms, they've shot themselves in the foot. They are now eating themselves. You look at it like the streaming platforms, right? Like, why people say, a lot of people I've talked to, they're like, why should I pay money to go see something when I'm already paying 15, 12, $15 a month to stream it? I'll just wait a few months for it to come out on a streaming platform. Like, look at Trolls Band Together will be on what, Peacock here soon, and same thing with Napoleon's going to be on Apple TV. Wish will be on Disney Plus within a matter of weeks. So what is the motivation for people to pay money to go to the theaters? And then with the physical media, right? That's another one. I guarantee you that the studios made more on physical media than they did on the streaming subscriptions. So at this point, I love the streaming platforms, but what good are they doing for people?
Well, they're
Or
doing
not
good
not
for
for
us
people,
because
sorry, yeah, for us, but I mean, what good are they doing for the studios?
they're doing for the studios is it's not as good as it seems. I mean, yes, they're providing an alternate source of income,
They got
as far
greedy
as
is what happened.
based off this the spot the subscriptions that you're actually paying for or whatnot, but it's still nowhere near to the extent that would justify the 200 to $250 movies. Like, let's get into the Marvels. Let's get into the Disney movies. Wish, 250 million dollar movie. The Marvels, 250, possibly even a 275, $300 million. And these are production costs. We're not even throwing in advertising costs or any other inherent costs they're in. Those two movies with Wish and the Marvels are going to be a disaster financially at the box office for Disney. It's absolutely in a year of continual disasters for Disney. This has just been right on point. These could be the two biggest disasters for them this year, which is terrible for Disney. But like you said, in a few weeks they'll be on Disney Plus, and people won't care. The thing
Yeah.
is, when the only movie actually that Disney is able to go ahead and have a good story out of is Elemental. Elemental, that that really was terrible, the worst Pixar opening I think ever at that time. Yet
It was great though. I loved it.
it climbed her good word of mouth until it actually earned close to $500 million, and I believe might have turned a profit at the box office. Then it goes over to Disney Plus and becomes a huge hit on Disney Plus. Those are the few stories that they have where they spend $200 million and it looks like it's going to pay off. Looks like it's going to give them a break even, or in the case of bringing people in to go ahead and check out Disney Plus, it looks like it's going to be worth its weight in gold there. The
But
thing is,
it's a big gamble though. It's a big
yes,
gamble to
it's a
take.
huge gamble. That's what I'm trying to say, my friend. What is Disney Plus's biggest success right now? Bluey. Bluey is their biggest success right now. You cannot tell me that costs $200 million to make episodes of Bluey that these kids are watching. You cannot tell me that a Bluey movie is going to make, that going to take $200 million like a Disney animation movie
Yeah.
like Wish. I still think if you put a Bluey movie out there, it would take what, 50, 75 million, put it out there, it's going to get you probably double your returns there. I still think that type of movie can, because it's done so well and performed so well on Disney Plus. The Star Wars movie where the Mandoverse all comes together, I think because the fact that the Mandoverse, Mandalorian, Ahsoka, those have been somewhat generally received well ratings wise on Disney Plus, there's a decent chance that the final movie that comes out, where they finally battle Thrawn and all that, because that's, you and I both know that's what it's leading up to. When that finally comes out, that's a decent chance to make a hit. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but that's a decent chance to make it be a hit. The thing is with Disney, they have to look and reevaluate, especially with Marvel and their Disney animation stuff, how they make and create and market these things, because the Marvels is something, obviously it's going to be a learning lesson for them. The television shows that they produced out there this year, and how poorly they've been received, has got to be something that they are now reevaluating. In fact, they're redoing the Daredevil episodes as we speak. When it comes to Wish, my friend, Wish is something, I don't know, is that same or samey Disney animation style? I'm not talking Pixar. I'm talking the Disney animation style. Does that work anymore, do you think, to audiences? It just because you take a look at Wish, and the animation style is so familiar to so many other Disney animated movies of the past. I think with Encanto succeeded because it was such a great musical adventure, and you could relate so much. Kids can, and young adults could relate as far as the music adventure. But when it comes to Wish, it's more related on that familiar traditional Disney animation style. Does that still work with younger audiences today?
I think it does. I don't I'm not sure it has anything to do with the animation style. I think it's more the idea that they're telling the same stories over and over again, but
Well,
they're
with
just
the same
reskinning
same
them.
character styles, and then also you've got the two cute characters or three cute
Mhm.
characters that they want to go ahead and market. And I get it; they're supposed to be funny, quirky. You want to go ahead and buy them at the local store. I get that. It just seems to be very samey from them. Their way that they create these movies, not just the animation style, but just the way that they approach these Disney animated movies, just seem to be very tried and true. And I'm not sure that formula works all the time anymore, as we're seeing with Wish.
Right, yeah, and I think that people are tired. They're tired of these movies being put out by Disney. Like, they're tired of spending their time, like, Disney, I think, is falling out of favor with people. And I honestly never thought that I'd see the day, but it's, you have these movies that are constantly failing. People are like, oh, I'm just gonna wait. Like the last one I saw wasn't that good, so I'm just gonna wait till it comes out on Disney Plus. Same thing with these with like Star Wars. Like I guarantee if you were to put a Star Wars out in the theaters now, like it wouldn't do nearly as good as Star Wars has done in the past because people are tired of getting a poor quality product.
I agree, and but it's just it seems to me that I think that the same traditional style of movie making, whether it's the same style of animation or the same animated movie like Wish that you may have seen before, you might relate to before in previous Disney animated movies, or the same, you know, epics that you're seeing when Napoleon Killers of the Flower Moon. Let's throw these big extravaganzas, 250 million dollar movies that are 2.5 hour, 3.5 hours long. They're not working as well as they did in the past. They're no longer guarantees. And the thing is, maybe it's just giving Hollywood the sign that things have to change. I know Marvel behind the scenes, you and I both have heard the news that Kevin Feige is restructuring the way that Marvel approaches both the television and also the cinematic side. I think that the whole Hollywood industry coming out of the SAG after strike needs to take another look at this as well.
Yeah, well, I think that Hollywood is has or the studios have become more focused on spectacle and merchandising than they have on actual storytelling. Because a big difference between movies that have been released today and movies that came out of the 90s and even before that is the fact that there was a heavy focus on storytelling. Half the budget wasn't blown on making a few explosions. It was spent actually going into how do I tell the best story that I possibly can. And that's something you don't see with movies in theaters anymore.
I don't know. Just again, it's something I think that fundamentally has to change. I think it's just something that they need to look at, or basically, you, the fan out there, you, the audience, are dictating it based off of your wallets and what you're deciding is worth seeing and going to the movie theater for and not. I mean, you talk about Josh about before. You also, I remember another conversation that you were very pointed on exactly how much you have to spend when you take the family to a theater. You were
Right.
down to the dollar as far as the how much you have to spend each and every time you go out to theater. So it's a financial commitment, and the thing is, in order to do that, you have to be very selective about what you're going to see.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like why am I going to spend, what, 60, $70 if I can just wait and we can watch it at home and I can order a pizza and watch it from the couch? Like this is why this is what I mean when I say the streaming, like these studios have really like shot themselves in the foot with these streaming services because they're the reason that people aren't going to the theaters anymore. It literally is their fault because they've created a separate avenue of viewing these films that is a lot cheaper for people. So what motivation is there to go to the movies? Like it used to be like, oh hey, I'll go see the next superhero film, but look at what's happening. Nobody's going to see those movies anymore because they hit Disney Plus 6 weeks after their release.
So I ask you, my friend, do things need to change when it comes to Hollywood and the way we look at movies or the way we make movies and animated features going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Like they're okay, I don't know if they need to change, but I think that we all know the solution, though nobody wants that solution. The solution is to cut out the streaming platforms. The studio saw what Netflix was doing and they wanted a piece of that pie. Like they got greedy and now they've created a problem for themselves that they are struggling to figure out a solution for.
What are your thoughts out there on the future of movie making? Do you see this continuing as is, or do you see fundamental changes taking place due to the high cost of filmmaking, the quite often bad returns for a lot of these movies financially to box office, and also what the streaming services out there represent? Please let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear it because this is something that I think should be talked about as an important topic going forward on all these entertainment shows. Please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, 1/2 hour down, 1/2 hour to go here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we talked for a half hour on the fundamental changes that might need to be made in the movie industry. So let's, before we head on out, my friend, talk about the fundamental changes come into an industry that we love also just as much, sometimes even more so than the movie industry, and that is the video game industry, where the video game industry was quite different than when you and I started covering it, or when you and I actually started really getting into games. As far as for me over the course of decades, you also as well, the 90s, 2000s, as the whole industry continued to change and evolve. And I know when I started covering the E3s of the world, when we went to E3s and we saw the different, indie makers, we saw midline as far as double A publishers, right and left, putting out their games, some hit, some not, but also the triple A games dominating the space as well. Flash forward over a decade later, a little over a decade later, and things are a lot different now. It is similar to what we see in the movie industry, where the smaller games, like the horror movies. Now, just imagine if we went on a previous conversation, thought, what if Disney just went the way of making $10 to $20 million horror movies with all their IPs? They'd probably make a ton of cash then and that way. But, I understand that they won't do that. But let's just say they did. That would be really funny to go ahead and think, Slasher Mickey or something like that as far as ways to make monies out there. But the mind wanders if that was be the case, but they would be more profitable. And I'll just leave it at that. So, but let me ask you this, my friend, when it comes to the industry, when you and I started going to E3s back in 2016, 2017, 2018, and all that, even then it has changed. Gone in many ways is the mid-tier developers and publishers. Most of those have gone the way of the dodo or been bought out by other venture capitalist companies or other companies, or even in the case of Sony and Microsoft, purchased by them. I want to hear your thoughts on this as far as the video game industry and where we stand in your opinion right now.
I mean, that the video game industry is another thing where they're all kind of eating each other. There's some of the actually, I stand corrected. If this had not have happened, if we didn't create this scenario where these studios are buying other studios, the Microsofts and Sonys, Nintendo's actually like they've kind of haven't needed to absorb anybody in order to stay on top. So that's cool for them. But we have these companies buying up all these other smaller studios, and it's kind of created a rise in indie developers coming up and putting out these amazing projects. So without all that happening, we wouldn't I guarantee you we wouldn't see some of the really really cool games that are coming out these days. But um yeah, it's weird. I know we've talked about this before with like Microsoft. At what point are they going to own so many studios that they're not going to be able to manage all of them? Same thing with Sony. And it almost feels it, or it did feel for a while like Sony had all these amazing relationships with these Japanese developers, but then we found out that Square was actually willing to partner with Microsoft on some things. But anyways, um yeah, I mean, how many more acquisitions do you think we're going to see? And is this going to affect the quality of product that we're going to get because the studio the these sorry the Microsoft and Sony are spreading themselves too thin? It's like taking like not having enough butter to cover an entire piece of toast.
Very great analogy there. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And this year, I think we talked about it before on this show. I think this year, for a lot of people, is going to be thought of as one of the best years in video games. And I'm not going to disparage them at all on that because I think critically, it is one of the best years for video games as far as the number of high quality video games or video game remasters or remakes has been outstanding. We have been spoiled by the number of video games been released today that have a average of 80 or above on Metacritic. Absolutely spoiled. It has absolutely been great to see a lot of really great projects all year long have come our way. I know a lot of that is based off of what we saw with COVID, a lot of games that were pushed back. A lot of these games probably were intended to release in 2020, 2021,
Yep.
2022, and they were all pushed back to where they needed extra development time to this year. We're going to see the same thing as far as next year as well. A lot of the games that were supposed to be earmarked for this year or maybe even 2022 are going to be set out for next year. But that being the case, my friend, we're seeing with the higher dollar amount now, as far as the MSRP here in the States and probably worldwide, it's going to equate to about $70 US for a lot of these games, whether they're AAA or otherwise. It just seems like you need to get more out of it. But when you talk to a lot of these developers and whatnot, they're talking about crunch, they're talking about what they're packing in, what their players are packing in. They won't give you much more unless you're paying extra for it beyond the $70. So this is what I'm starting to have an issue with. We're seeing more and more games, whether it's a games as a service, and that's something we can talk about here in this half hour too, as far as games as a service being a new trend thing, especially after what Sony had told its shareholders about its future with producing the majority of its games as a games as a service. But you're talking about games that you're paying for initially a $70 investment and having to pay eventually a lot more by the time you're done with it.
Well, that's because they, let's be honest, like they're in it for the money. Like I think where the days where studios, developers, whatever, were in it for, I mean, the indie developers obviously a little bit different, but the days when these companies actually like cared about putting out a product that was pleasing to its customer base, I think that those days are long gone because they have seen the magic of the thing that you and I love so much called microtransactions and DLCs and add-ons, and they've seen the return on those, and now they have, much like the movie studios, they've gotten incredibly greedy about it. So I was actually talking to someone the other day, and they're like, I don't really play a lot of new games anymore because nothing is ever finished when they put it out. I'm like, yeah, that's a really
That's
fair
another
point.
thing. Yeah. We're
Yeah.
waiting for a day one patch. We're waiting for this patch. We're waiting for that patch. Wow, this is so buggy. What's going on? That's another thing. It's like he's exactly right. He or she is exactly right because they're hitting it right on the head as far as look what Cyberpunk 2077 absolutely botched for a
Hmm.
heavily anticipated game that came out. Absolutely terrible the way that they put that out in that shape. Yet, what, 2, 3 years later now, they bring out the DLC starring Idris Elba for it, and it's fantastic. And now the game, with all the updates since then, have made it a fantastic game so many years later.
Yeah, yeah, and
But it
these
took
companies are,
3 years to get it to that shape.
yeah, and CD Projekt Red has actually been really transparent about the issues, and they're talking about how they rushed to put the product out because the shareholders wanted to see a return by quarter one, two, three, whatever it was, and they apologized for that. But yeah, you still see that happening over and over again. And I don't know about you, but I personally, like, I hate buying a game and then waiting hours for it to install before I can play it. Like I like, actually I enjoy the PS5 because you put the games in, they take like 30 to 45 minutes to install, but with Xbox, like, I'll be sitting there probably 4 or 5 hours sometimes before I'm able to play a game that I just bought, and it's, remember back in the day when you could you buy on the 360 or the original Xbox, PlayStation 2, whatever, you come home, open the game up, put in the console, you start playing it. But now you have these day one patches that are absolutely massive, and I hate when I turn on a game and I see an update is needed for this game. It will be done in 5 hours and 45 minutes.
And see, that's the thing. You know, this gets into the physical media, digital media conversation, as you alluded to just a few days ago on Facebook. Uh, you will not go silently into the digital world, but
Oh,
I will.
absolutely. Yeah.
But I want to say that sometimes it's better in this days and age, even with the day one patches. But you can actually physically buy a game on the digital. I'm sorry, physical. That was an oxymoron. You can digitally buy a game in advance and have it preloaded so it's there for you. Like Starfield. Starfield, I give the great example of. So many people bought that digitally. So many people ready with the Xbox Games Pass have it ready digitally. They had already pre-downloaded, so it was much easier once the green light hit that they were able to go ahead and get it and play. But you, if you want physical media, like you said, you have to wait to get it either from Amazon or go to the store and buy it. And once you bring it back home, you've got a ton of uploads waiting for you as far as patches are concerned before you even get a chance to play it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's crazy frustrating, and a lot of these games too, like, even after they come out, they're putting out patches and updates every week, so it's not just one time that you just sit there and wait for it to install, it's multiple times you sit down, you'll expect to be able to do the, function on the Xbox or PlayStation where you can instantly jump back into your game because there's like, "Oh, congratulations, there's been a patch," or whatever. It'll be done installing in 45 minutes to 2 hours. Who knows? I mean, I guess depending on what your internet speed is, but it's still incredibly annoying.
Absolutely. And this is something I don't see going away, but it comes down to what the same thing is when we talked about movies. These are not cheap products, my friend, especially if they're a AAA game. With the rising costs that are associated with these games, a triple A budget game, let's say like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, which dropped, which has had its share of problems upon its start, yet still, according to Activision, they're still touting it's the number of concurrent players played initially, hours, as far as hours are concerned, and blah 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 blah. They don't tell you real sales numbers, but okay, whatever. You know, even that's a game that could have cost possibly even up to $500 million in development when all is said and done. And you're talking about something that's supposed to get you $1 billion before it's said and done. If all works out, it'll be the leader as far as on the MPD for the month of November. But it just seems like it's just there's so much invested in these games now. Alan Wake 2, such a visually stunning and striking game. That's probably going to be one of the games of the year as far as it's already been nominated for game of the year by the Game Awards, but it'll probably be mentioned, as a game of the year or top one of the top games of the year on several outlets coming up here in the next month or so. And that game cannot be cheap as well. That's a game it still may only cater to a niche audience and may not ever see the kind of return it needs to see.
Right, but if I'm spending the money that much money on something, I would want it to be perfect when it released. I wouldn't want to put it out just because I want a quick return on my investment. If I were making toys and I had a deadline, hey, you have to get these action figures out by next Tuesday, but wait, the arms aren't finished. I'm not going to put it out there without any arms. Like that doesn't make any sense.
I agree. I agree, but you still see the issues with all these games, no matter how much money is put in ahead of time. There's very few of them that actually come out 100% clean as a whistle, sharp to the T right upon its release. I mean,
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3 had its own issues. It still doesn't have an Xbox, release. It probably will have one very soon. Most likely it will be announced at the Game Awards as well. Probably be, they're promised to be before the end of the year. So we'll see. It's going to probably come out very soon, the Xbox, but that had issues in development as far as trying to treat that with the Xbox X and Xbox Series S as well, the differentiating features on it. But it seems like these games that are skyrocketing with their budgets and the expectations for them by consumers, they're also at the end point consumers who have to pay now more for movies, as we talked about. now have to pay considerably more for the kind of game experiences that they once had and once described, and now along as well. Because remember, back in the day, we've talked about all the games that we've played 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 hours, 100 plus hours with. So to get these same kind of experiences, we're paying substantially more.
Yeah, but it actually I guess it makes more sense with video games because yeah, you're paying $70 and you're putting over 100 hours into it, where when you go to the movie theaters you're paying $15 and you're only getting like 2 hours out of it. But we hit that weird point in the early 2000s where games went from being like 30 hours was considered long for a game, right? Even for like the Square RPGs. And then in the 2000s, the late 2000s, we hit that point, right, where instead of they're going from 30 hours to 60 hours, and then 60 hours to 100 hours. And I think the reason that some of these games are so expensive to develop now is the fact that the they're such massive games. Like look at the Assassin's Creed games, right? You can spend you can spend like 200 plus hours exploring the entire world that has been created in this. Does do you think anyone asked for that? I mean,
Well, if it's not
seriously,
filler, if it's actually and it, you take it and it's really something worth adventuring and seeing,
meaningful side quests.
like Starfield. Starfield has been, depending on who you talk to, one of the most divisive games to come out in recent years. But the one thing I hear more consistently of is that these side quests are actually, in many cases, more interesting than the actual main quest itself. So a lot of people are absolutely just divesting themselves from the main quest and absolutely getting more invested in what they're doing on the side. Some of them are playing upwards of 100, 150, 200 hours plus, and they've never touched or they never go back to the main quest. That is something I think that is well worth the investment, my friend. It's when you talk about Assassin's Creed, was it not Mirage, but Assassin's Creed
Valhalla
Valhalla,
wasn't.
yeah,
Yeah,
that you absolutely could not stand because your OCD took you to places where you've seen before, as far as many times before on all these side quests that, for a lot of all intents and purposes, were a lot of them were fetch quests that you really didn't want to do. So I heard your voice on that as far as that's concerned. That to me sounded like a whole bunch of filler and basically just led to a game where that's what you don't want to see. But if it's done right, my friend, I just think that getting $70 of value in a game is truly essential to what playing video games is all about.
yeah. You should be able to pay $70 and get a high quality game, and that includes if it's going to be a massive game that it needs that there needs to be meaning in that mass. And I think that
Even
that's
if it's
where.
only a 10 to 15, 15 to 20 hours, let's say 15 to 20, you better get a lot of bang for your pop if that's the case.
Oh, absolutely. And I used to be perfectly fine paying 60 plus dollars for a Halo game because it had a really, really good story and there's a lot of multiplayer to go back to. But, we're seeing a lot of games today like Assassin's Creed and even, there are elements of a lot of the
Well, Mirage, the Assassin's Creed, they might have heard you. So they made it a much shorter,
yeah.
less
Right, I
obtrusive
haven't yeah, I haven't played that
game.
one yet, but even, like, a lot of the Bethesda games that come out, like, they're far too big, and a lot of the side quests are like, "Oh, hey, go deliver this fish to, a city all the way across the map," there's no meaningful return in a lot of those side quests, so, yeah, if you're gonna charge someone that much money for something, make it count, give it meaning, make it impactful. That's why I think Alan Wake did so good or so well because there was no filler. There was no fluff. It's just is a very straightforward game.
So I ask you, my friend, when you're looking at it legitimately, when you're talking about it and looking at it, the thing that still bothers me though is microtransactions upon all. And the fact is that, the CEO of 2K absolutely was not hiding at all his admiration for the concept of microtransactions. He feels it in all of that most of their games have just filled with it. Let's take the NBA 2Ks, the 2K games in general, just absolutely filled with them. Microtransactions can be a good thing if you want them as far as designs. Fortnite is a free to play game. Absolutely flood it with microtransactions. I have no problems with that. But when you're paying $70 for a game and you're asked to pay $30, $40 in microtransactions beyond that, or like the recent controversy with Omni-Man in Mortal Kombat 1, paying $20, I think was the ticket price for an Omni-Man as far as DLC on that, just for the Omni-Man, I think, guy. I'm not sure if it included a background or anything like that. That to me is just an abhorrent use of the way you use microtransactions.
Oh, absolutely. EA does the same thing in their sports games. Like you want these different colored jerseys or you want to unlock this court, you have to pay so much money. And Ubisoft has been notorious for putting games out where they're like, "Hey, if you want to I know you love this game, but do you want to beat it faster? Here, you can download this, you can pay for this thing," or even having side quests where like you have to have a certain amount of like currency or whatever to unlock it, and there's no way you can get that currency without paying for it. That's the stuff that irritates me.
So I will close the conversation with something that is truly near and dear to your heart. And I kind of mentioned it earlier. We talked about movies, we talked about video games. The thing that both can end up being on is physical media. And as someone who is the happy hoarder, you are very adamant about the future of where physical media is going. You've heard the recent news reports about Best Buy is going to be phasing out physical media. I've told you when I was there for Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, I was actually there for something else at Walmart, and I saw no physical media. I just saw cards saying, take this up to the counter, and there you go. It just seems to me that the physical media is being phased out for the most part. And I understand it's a cost issue, but if it's a cost issue that's talking about, why aren't games cheaper because of it?
Yeah, well, if they're charging so much for these games, yeah, the creating the physical media is expensive, but wouldn't it make more sense to get a return on that investment? Wouldn't it make more sense to get a I don't know what I'm trying to say. It would make more sense to
I
put
mean,
out a
why is a
physical.
physical copy of Mass Effect, let's just say, the same as far as the remastered version of all three? Why is that the same price as the digital version? When
That's
theoretically it should.
that's the big question, right? Like you shouldn't they've found out that people will pay $70 for nothing but a download code. And so they've seen the money involved in that and they're like, "Oh, this is a good idea." But with physical media, it justifies the cost of putting it out with how many people actually bought the game. So if people stop buying digital things, then maybe they would see the error of their waves. But yeah, they back when the original Xbox marketplace opened up, you could buy a digital game for like half the price of what a physical game came out as. But now they're trying to corner people into a digital market, and I think that that's kind of robbery in itself.
Yet make you pay the same for what you would with physical media.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And but people are paying for it, so that's their money is speaking for them, and
As
because
it
of
is
that.
in the box office about people
Mhm.
just waiting for movies to go to streaming.
Yep, and that's the reason we're headed towards this very dark future.
It is going to be a dark future for people such as yourself that love going ahead and having the physical copies of things, whether it's movies or video games. And I can understand that you're very disturbed by it, and I don't say I blame you one bit. But where are we at in the state of video games? Are we in a good place when it comes to video game making, video game industry? Do you think we're in a good place, or do you think, like we talked about in the movie industry, that it needs a lot of help to get it to the right position? I don't think it needs a lot of help. I think logistics have dictated a lot of it. I think that now that we've had a really good year in video games, I think it can only get better from here. But there are some things that we have to come to accept, like you're talking about with digital and physical media costs.
Yeah, absolutely. I also feel like these, Sony and Microsoft buying up all these studios, it's eventually going to cause some issues and they're going to start shuttering studios. But I feel like in the aftermath of all this chaos, we're going to see a lot of really great new studios rise to fame and create some amazing games. And I, for one, cannot wait for that to happen. Not to see the, Sony, Microsoft fall, but to see what kind of new voices come into this landscape.
So, what are your thoughts out there on both the movie and video game industry? We would absolutely love for you to go ahead and share your thoughts. Please do so whenever you can. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. Well, my friend, it's been a great episode, a great conversation. I love the fact that we were able to go ahead and take one real subject and then just branch off into an hour conversation. Before we head on out, Cool Bro is in the chat and he was asking, what are you asking your lovely wife and kids for this Christmas?
I want a complete in box copy of Legend of Legaia on PlayStation 1.
Ooh, interesting. Good
That's what I want.
choice.
That's what I want, man. I had a copy and it was missing the manual, and it wasn't the same for me. So I want a complete in box copy.
I had my finger on the button to buy that Xbox Series X special. I really was thinking about it, but then I thought this is a 1080p behind me. I really don't need it. The only reason why I would have really gotten it was because it was physical media involved. It has a slot for
Mhm.
physical media. But I realized, unlike you, I don't know how many physical media, how many actual Blu-ray discs I'm going to actually put into it, whether it's movies or video games. I think I just get lazy sometimes and just buy it off the digital platform. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, and that's what
I,
a lot of people do too. It's the convenience of it and being able to install, you
I'm
know,
one of those people. I'm
things
sorry.
a week early. Yeah. No, and I get it, but I just don't like it.
I it's it's easier to do, man. What can I say? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I forgive you. I
All
forgive
right,
you.
thank you, my
Nobody's
friend.
perfect.
That's for sure. But before we head on out, my friend, can you give everyone the lowdown on what's going on with your own sale? It's actually beyond Cyber Monday that you can get today at happyhoardercollectibles.com.
Yeah, yeah. Have any order you put in on happyhoardercollectibles.com, you use the code Happy Holidays 23 at checkout, and that'll get you a nice 10% off on your purchase. So get on there, check it out, buy some pops, buy some we got some cool Final Fantasy Play Art Kai action figures and Gundam models. Definitely check that out.
What was moving well for you this past weekend?
Uh
Does it still pops? Do pops still move
Funko
well?
Pops, yeah, I mean, everybody wants Funko Pops, and those are, like, very constant sellers for us. That and Pokemon cards do really well. Action figures are hit or miss, even on the best of days, but Funko Pops are definitely a hot seller.
I was thinking about a Series X, like I said, devotion, but I backed out. I don't really need it. I'm gonna probably wait until I can buy a nice high-end computer for all the channels that I run. That's probably a more sound investment indeed at this point in time, especially with the Lakers Fast Break and Pop Culture Cosmos doing as well as they are. I'd like to go ahead and make sure that they have a computer going forward that can support it. So I didn't really get anything this Friday, but my gosh, my friend, you're talking to an AI. Do you know why you're talking to an AI, Josh? I'm an AI of Gerald Glassford. Now, you already used this joke on the Lakers Fast Break, but I am an AI. You know why?
Why?
Because the actual real me is actually still driving around the parking lots at the Fashion Show Mall and also as well the Outlet Center here in Las Vegas, still doing loops trying to find a parking space. It was bad, my friend. It was bad. So retail, the malls still during this time, at least in certain malls, are still pretty busy, and it's good to see. It's good to see.
It's funny. I was talking to Eric, who used to be on the Super BS Games cast, and he was saying that he missed a lot of the Black Friday deals that he wanted to get because Black Friday has been going on for like 2 weeks now, and there's been different sales each day. So he's missed out on some of the things that he's wanted because they weren't actually on sale on Black Friday.
I'm not a huge fan of Mac computers. Just to let you know, I last used them regularly when I was in the special effects industry. I'm a PC guy. I'm a big PC guy. So that's what I like to use. That's what I like to stick with. I just think the interface, Windows, a lot more things are working and available for Windows. It's just so much easier to go ahead and find programs that will work for Windows as opposed to Macs. What are your thoughts, Josh, before we hand it? I know you got some Mac products at the house.
Yeah, I mean, I have a Mac. The one thing I don't like about Macs is their 7-year cycle. Like, you can only use them for 7 years because Apple stops putting updates out for them after that 7 years because they want you to constantly be buying the next product. Whereas
Well,
you can,
same here with this one. I mean, this one is going to, the expiration date is going to run out, but it's going to be about 12, 13 years old. But when it does, because Windows 10 will no longer allow me to update beyond Windows 10.
yeah, but Microsoft will update a long time after that, the 7 years that a Mac allows. Like my Mac, I have a 27-inch iMac, got it in 2012, and it doesn't update at all anymore. Like, I'm surprised it lets me do this podcast because my operating system hasn't been updated in like 5 years. So I'm very surprised that it's working. But knock on wood. But whereas like the Microsoft stuff, like there's always a workaround you can find to get things to update.
Yeah, I got this thing. It's an i7 at the time, 2011. It's just the i7 will not update to Windows 11. So as soon as the updates stop for Windows 10, supposedly I've been told by the end of next year or 2025 at the latest that, yeah, that this probably will be the best time to go ahead and start looking down that road. So, yep. But this old gal's worked so far. I had a kind of a rough day the other day on the Lakers fast break because it was kind of chugging. It was like, oh. But you know what? So far, it's done the job. So there you go. All right. But my friend, it's been great having you here as always. We've been doing this for so long, and I want to continue doing it for a long time more, my friend. It's always great to hear your thoughts on anything out there and considering anything out there in the world of pop culture. But any last thoughts before we head on out, my friend?
Not that I can think of, but anyone out there been watching any Christmas movies lately? I started the Christmas movie not marathon, but I started watching them a couple weeks ago. We saw Christmas Vacation. We just watched we watched Christmas with the Cranks, and then this weekend we watched A Christmas Story Christmas on Max, which actually was not amazing by any stretch of the imagination.
Oh, there you go. Could be some of the worst of pop culture there for you. We'll find out. We'll find out
Yeah,
indeed.
yeah, absolutely.
So for Josh Peterson, this is your, oh, actually, it's Santa Claus. Which one, the new series or the original movie? I'm assuming you're talking about the original movie. That's what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, the original's a classic. Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So I don't know if, Disney can, strike twice while the iron's hot with the latest Tim Allen Santa Clauses as far as series is concerned. But we'll see. We'll see. It's okay. Tim Allen's comedy is, love it or leave it. It depends. Yeah. He makes the same noises and stuff like that, for you watch enough of Tim Allen, it's just like he's better in stand up. I like his stand up better.
Yeah. I mean, I like the Santa Claus a lot, but I get what you mean. He's like the him and Adam Sandler are kind of the same character in every movie.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you guys have yourself a great